All right. Now I'm ready to welcome back a longtime friend of the show. You've heard him on many sports radio shows and podcasts across the country. You can find some of his work at vegasinsider.com and majorwager.com. I'm very happy to welcome back Mr. Brian Edwards from Brian Edwards Sports and Major Wager. You can follow him at Vegas B Edwards. Happy New Year, Brian. What's up?
What's up, Kiev? Happy holidays. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. Thanks for being here. Lots to talk about here. We got a slew of college football games, and then it's going to be the end. But we also have some NFL to talk about, and I have a UFC question for you to end the show up later. So, real excited that you came on. Yeah, I've been crazy busy myself. I hear you're doing okay in bowl season a little bit. Is that true?
Yep, 10-5. Would have been 11-5 with NC State, but UCLA did what they did. Darn it. I loved NC State last night.
I had freaking Memphis like -4 or something, you know? I mean, I also had there's another game that canceled that was just awful. What was it?
Boise?
It wasn't Boise. I had the other one that had massive line value. I couldn't remember.
Washington State, Miami?
Oh, yeah, I had Washington State early on that one. So Miami had all those COVID problems, and something I could see. I'm like, Miami's not going to be motivated. I had them at I had them at the L motivation. Like zero freaking motivation, and that's another one that didn't go because of the cancellations, and a lot of these bowls that are getting canceled, you get some line value on it. Kind of sucks, but if you bet the day of, you're usually going to be okay, except for Memphis that flew all the way to Hawaii, I guess. But
right,
Jesus Christ, how does that happen? Just cancel you. They're in Hawaii practicing all week, then they decided to take a COVID test right before the game. I don't know what it was, Brian. That's kind of crazy.
It's madness. It's all Chafe City. And my Hawks are getting hosed in the NBA. I mean, every single player except for Cam Reddish has gotten COVID. And they haven't postponed any games, whereas all these other teams have had, not a ton of postponements, but yeah, it's I'm of the belief if you have 100% vaccination on your team, I don't even think you should be getting tested, but what do I know?
Well, to be honest with you, we've probably had it 3 times and don't know it because we never got tested. So who the hell knows? I mean, in my opinion, test if you're sick. Yeah, that's how far I go. Now, obviously, people are not getting that yet, but the NFL is slowly changing the rules. Now it's down from 10 days to 5 days to quarantine. They're kind of starting to figure it out a little bit. But, we're just going to sit here on the sidelines and do the best we can, Brian. But we have a huge slate of college football. We have playoffs coming up. And, man, the 30th, there's some games that I like. I want to see it. And we're going to start really on the 31st on New Year's. But before I get to New Year's Eve, is there any games you like on the 30th you want to throw out there?
Oh, absolutely. As I'm getting my odds up just to make sure that I've got the right day. Yeah. Man, I got no clue on South Carolina, North Carolina. I got Tennessee at -4. So at 6, I still think it's the play. It's a home game. Nashville, huge alumni base, and Tennessee fans are fired up. They go from 3-7 under Pruitt to 7-5 under Heupel when they literally had like their 5-6 best players, jump in the portal before Heupel even, got to spring practice or even got to his intro presser. And, 6 of those wins were by 24 points or more. They were only down 7 at Alabama early fourth. They went to Kentucky, got a nice win. Hendon Hooker has just been spectacular, man. 26-3 TDI-NT ratio, 561 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. And the biggest part of this is, David Bell and George Karlaftis being out. Bell, 93 receptions, 1,286 yards, 6 touchdowns. Karlaftis, 41 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 8 QB hurries, 5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. He's a stat sheet stuffer, scoop and score for 56 yards. Probably going to be a top 10, certainly a top 15 pick. And those 2 guys being out in the home field, with Tennessee, or not, literal home field, but home crowd advantage. If I didn't have any money at 4, I would definitely still play Tennessee at 6. But if they win by 5, sorry. But I think it's Vols or pass for sure. I love the Vols at -4.
Well, I'll tell you this: they better do something for the SEC's sake, because the SEC has been shit in these games so far, and
No
Missouri at least covered, so I think they're 1-3. But man, Mississippi State last night, woof, 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 woof. Was that? What was that?
What about the ESPN broadcast being on for like 10 minutes, and then like 2 seconds before they kick, they decide to say, "Oh, 4 starters and 10 guys out from Mississippi State"? I mean, why didn't you lead the broadcast with that? And I have to say, I'm normally and I went back and looked, because I had looked on the college fantasy page I go to like 20 minutes before game time, and they had a few notes, but it was like the dude that got in a car wreck. I knew he wasn't going to play for Mississippi State. But then I went to a beat reporter's Twitter page, and he did have it out there like 20 minutes before kick that, this guy, and this guy, I don't see him out here. So, I mean, if you were really being diligent about it, you could have seen it. But, I mean, anyway, just a horrible performance regardless by Mississippi State, and no excuses. I mean, Texas Tech's the one that had the interim coach and all that. So that was awful.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, Texas Tech was still on their backup quarterback that played a few games, but absolute mess for the SEC. But Purdue, that's just one of those that I took a bad number on a long time ago. But I'll tell you right now, if I knew that Karaflis, whatever he was going to hold out, then I probably wouldn't have took it. I think that's even more than the David Bell. But the David Bell is just a massive part of their offense. So I'm concerned about it, but that's how it is. You play the game. I had Western Michigan +1, and that line closed at freaking 7.5. So I mean, there's some really nice spreads that I had just by playing the gambling game ahead of time before some of the holdouts come out. I guess I expected Tennessee to have more holdouts than Purdue in general, but that didn't happen. They only have a second string running back holding out. But what I will say, I like Michigan State a lot, and I like them because they seem to be motivated this game, and Pittsburgh's not having their quarterback play, Brian. People are like, why is this line still like under 3 in some books without their freaking quarterback? Pickett. I mean, I saw the backup stats. He only threw a couple balls, man. He ain't gonna go in there and do what Pickett did. It blows my mind why this is so low. And I know Michigan State doesn't have Walker, but it's a hell of a lot less of an impact to put a running back in the same system that's been running it all year anyway than a freaking quarterback. And when a quarterback sits out, it does somewhat set the motivational tone for your team that, hey, this is not nearly as big of a deal as the championship was or anything else. So I love Michigan State, buddy.
I agree. I'm on Sparty. Walker's out, but they're getting Jalen Naylor back, who was having a big year till he missed the last 4 regular season games, the wide receiver. And Peyton Thorne had a good year, 24-9 TDI-INT ratio. Not only, is Pickett out, but the OC Mark Whipple, he's already gone. The wide receiver, Taysir Mack, 27 receptions, 461 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's opted out. So has the cornerback, Damari Mathis, 43 tackles, 5 passes broken up, 2 interceptions, 1 pick 6. I agree with you, man. I'm on Sparty. As long as it's 3 or fewer. I mean, it'd probably be more than that, but you can get 3 or fewer right this second, so go get it.
Go get it right away. I totally agree. And I got nothing Wisconsin but a strong lean. I might take their team total over. That you have a total of 41 points and they're laying 6. It almost makes you think that they're not sure if if Arizona State's going to score or not. But I think Wisconsin's going to get theirs either way. It's one of those head scratchers. So I'm looking at the team total. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, this line to me. So nothing set in stone yet. But let's move on to the December 31st games. New Year's Eve. Start your day off, right? Watching some games. Unfortunately, the Gator Bowl or whatever Tax Slayer Bowl was canceled. And that was the that was the, I believe that was the Boston College one. Not sure. Thought it was. And then you have the Sun Bowl here, the new teams in it. Well, Washington State's here, and you have Central Michigan. And this is about 3.5 points. I think that both teams are going to be motivated here, but I don't see much for holdouts for Washington State or Central Michigan. Strength of schedule favors Washington State 44th to 101st. Jim McElwain from Central Michigan's 2-2 there, and Washington State's Jake Dickert, nothing yet. But what I will say is that the strength of schedule, if you throw that out, these teams are very easy, even metrically. But Washington State had a great finish to their year, and I think they're coming in really hot. Central Michigan, I can't trust the MAC, but I don't like it past a 7 either. My power rating is 9.5. I don't have a play. I might play the over. It's 57.5, but I'm not in a hurry. So what are your thoughts?
It's Washington State or pass. Now, they do have a couple of opt-outs, or 3 of them. Let's see. Max Borgi, who's, been there forever and had a hell of a career. Leach used to throw him the ball out of the backfield all the time. So he's gone. One of their starting O-linemen, Cade Beresford, he's transferred to Boise State. And then another tackle, Abe Lucas, and then a cornerback, Jalen Watson. So that is 4 starters for Washington State have opted out, but I still think it's Washington State or pass. And there's still some 7s out there. I mean, it's not anything I'll have a big bet on or anything, but I'll probably get a little bit of Wazoo.
All right, a little bit of Wazoo. So, yeah, I mean, my power rating say 9.5, so it's not like it's. I don't disagree with that. I just, when you bet a MAC team, they have a history of being poor in bowl games, and you've seen Ball State do well, but in general, MAC teams have not fared so well in bowl games. Let's move on to the next one. Then we have the Cotton Bowl here. And wow, it's like, holy shit, we're at the playoffs already. We have Alabama versus Cincinnati, man. I'm going to let you go first, and we'll see if we line up. But pretty big spread here, 13.5. Totals, was it 58? I think 58-ish. So
yeah. Well, it looks like 57 or 57.5 from the odds I'm looking at right now. But I took Bama -7 in the first half. Now, they haven't been the first half juggernaut that they were last year when they went 11-2 against the spread in the first half. And then those several years with, Tua and Jalen, they were really good in the first half as well. In fact, those teams, those Bama teams the last 3 to 4 years were really who got me playing first half. So I was never a big first half guy until those teams. I haven't played them much in the first half. I don't even know what the record is in the first half this year. I don't think it's very good, but they haven't, been -7 or fewer very often at all. And just, look, if this game was played the week after the SEC championship and the AAC championship, I would give Cincinnati a much better chance just in general for the whole game. But with a month to prepare with Saban, now Mechie is a huge loss, no doubt. But I prefer the first half bet, but I'll probably have a little. I've taken a little bit of Alabama at 13. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I do think over the course of 60 minutes, they'll get the separation to cover this. I think they'll win by, 14-21, in my opinion. But Bama -7 in the first half is my preferable play. I will just note, and it's pretty much the same for Atlanta the last decade or so, but at Jerry World, they are 5-0, and they've covered all 5 times too, and most of them have been blowouts. Sparty in the semifinals of the playoff, that Connor Cook year, whatever, with D'Antonio still 4 or 5 years ago. Blew out Michigan in a season opener. I think that was still when Brady Hoke. They put it on Wisconsin. That was actually a close game. They pulled away in the second half. You remember that one, that season opener? That's probably been 7 or 8 years ago.
It was a long time ago. We've had LCU a few times, you know.
And yeah. I forget the other two, but they're pretty they make themselves at home in Jerry World in Arlington.
They do, but I took the 14 for Cincinnati when it opened. And you know, it's not like you're the first person that's kind of that I've heard speak out for Bama. There's a lot of people that are kind of waiting. They think that Cincinnati money might come in as a public dog type situation. And maybe the public can move this line. I don't know. But from what I hear, some of the odds makers are pretty comfortable with Cincinnati money coming in. So that makes me scratch my head a little bit. The thing that I like about Luke Fickell this year, obviously both teams are motivated. Obviously the strength of schedule for Alabama is way bigger than Cincinnati. I mean, these are obvious things. So you can completely throw out the whole yards per play, blah, blah, blah. You know, maybe look a little bit at the EPA stuff, which these two teams are pretty close. But for me, there's 3 reasons why I like Cincy. The first reason is that Mechie is out. And like you mentioned, he's their top receiver. Now, maybe they have a guy that's going to step right in because he's a 5-star guy. I think there's Brooks or something. There's a couple guys that are going to, you know, behind Williams and Mechie. But, I mean, he was massive in this offense. And Jameson Williams is the only other guy that has over 330 receiving yards this year. So you're going to see a new guy there. Now, he's going to be motivated. He's going to try to kick ass for his boss, man. He's going to go in there. He's going to put some work in. I'm serious. So Cincinnati's still going to have their hands full of a speedy guy. But he can make some mistakes too, and there could be some picks. Number 2, Alabama this year has been playing down to their competition in many situations. Now, does that happen? They also played up to their competition last week or a couple weeks ago against Georgia. They do that. Well, that's probably the only one that can compete with them, so they proved it. But, I mean, the A&M game, the LSU game was just ugly, and that was in Tuscaloosa. Obviously, Florida almost nabbed them. And Florida, they were better earlier in the season, but they weren't quite, you know, where they were ranked. I think you can even admit that, Brian. Wisconsin was
got hosed by the refs in the first quarter of that game. 3 bullshit calls.
Dude, you did. You freaking did. And if Auburn doesn't run the damn ball out of bounds, Alabama loses that game. And then all of a sudden Cincinnati might be on the, you know, wondering if they're going to get in. Well, no, I don't think that would have affected them. They still would have been in. Like if let's
Notre
say
Dame might have gotten in if Alabama. Well, you know, who knows? Alabama might have got in with 2 losses after the way they beat Georgia. Who knows?
Well, they still would have been in the SEC championship game with that Auburn loss.
Right, yeah, nobody would have won the West.
Or would have been A&M. No, I can't remember.
No. They lost to LSU in the regular season finale.
Oh, right. So they screwed them anyway. Okay. Well, anyways, they played down their competition. And the third reason is that Luke Fickell last year played Georgia. And I know it's not the team as good as Georgia is or as good as Alabama is, but still some of the same players, some of the same recruits. They kind of got that, hey, I'm playing the bigger boys off my back just last year. And they should have won that freaking game. So I think they hang. Now, I'm not going to necessarily disagree with Alabama first half because I've been riding them almost as long as you, Brian.
Right?
Me, you've been texting about that for a couple years now. But,
yeah.
But man, I took my Cincy at 14, and I don't know if you'll get a 14, but you know, there's no rush to go and bet this. You know, so we'll have a little disagreement on this one. Now, the Arizona Bowl was obviously canceled because it's that was the one with Central Michigan and Boise. But why don't we just move on to the Orange Bowl here? And you have Jim Harbaugh in his first playoff game in college, and you obviously have Kirby Smart, who tends to screw stuff up sometimes, playing each other. This is another SEC, game, and 2 SECs into the playoffs. But man, Jim Harbaugh, one of the most doubted guys over the past 8 years now, is now. You don't hear the media chirping about him right now, Brian, like you have in the past, my man.
No, you do not.
And I'm very happy for him because I was one of the few that said, well, who can beat Ohio State anyway? But I mean, let's just dive into this one. I'll go first. There's really nobody holding out, obviously. Both from the motivations very high. Strength of schedule, Michigan ranks 31st on Sagarin, Georgia 35th on Sagarin. Jim Harbaugh's 3-4 in bowl games. Kirby Smart's 5-2. So the metrics, Michigan number 6 in EPA margin, Georgia number 1. Now my power ratings have Georgia minus 5.25, right? Now, the thing I looked at, I'm like, somebody's going to get sacked, but I'm looking at the sack percentage that you see on like Football Outsiders. Michigan only ranks 42nd and 61st in adjusted line yards, but Georgia's not exactly up there either in sacks. They rank about 26th in pressure rate. So I'm like, Georgia's just stuffing people from the secondary on, I guess. But, at the same time, I think Georgia should be able to run the ball against Michigan. And that worries me because their defensive line and stuff rate only ranks 109th. So they will give up some yards. The thing that's really obvious to me is Stetson Bennett, Brian. He's just a great quarterback when he's playing with a lead, right? But he's freaking awful when he's not. It's like, are they going to throw in a JT Daniels that's going to be like, oh, fuck, now you go to me after all this time, right? And we talked about how soft he might be earlier about a month and a half when you were on last time. But I guess powering wise, I have to go with the Michigan Wolverines, but I can see a live bet in this situation better. I can see if Michigan's up by 7 to 10 points in the middle of the second quarter, I don't know if Georgia comes back. And I can see if Georgia's up 7 points, they keep putting it on them because they're playing into Kirby Smart's really good when they're leading. They, teams expect to run, then they'll just pop it right over their heads. And that's what Stetson Bennett's really good at. And he's very comfortable. So that's my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I liked Alabama so much going into the SEC championship game was just because I thought they had a huge quarterback advantage, and Georgia had, jumped on everybody all year, early and often. And my thoughts were, how's Stetson Bennett going to play in the third quarter of a one possession game when they need to go get a touchdown? Because we hadn't. I mean, and that's to their credit that they were just stomping everybody all year, but he did not play very well. Now, I'm not in the camp that, you just go to JT Daniels and it's like, we've talked about him a lot. I mean, that dude, I don't know why people think he's so good. I mean, he's never really done anything ever. I mean, he had 4 decent games late last year when Mississippi State brought 43 scholarship players to Athens. It was a tie game with 10 minutes left and they won by 7. And he had a big stat, or, they crushed South Carolina after Muschamp had been fired, after J.C. Horn had opted out, after Israel Makuumu, who had 3 interceptions against Georgia the year before, had opted out. And, and then he was just so soft and back in September when he just didn't even try to play in the Arkansas game, which had a big game feel to it after Arkansas had beaten A&M and was undefeated. But man, all that said, I really don't know where I figured Michigan is probably in a better place mentally and psychologically with the way Georgia got beat down and the way none of them have tasted victory against Bama. And they know, or that most likely if they get by Michigan, they got Alabama waiting for them again, where they'll have the exact same advantages they had in Atlanta, a huge quarterback advantage, a huge head coaching advantage. Look, Kirby's as good as there is in the recruiting game. He's not a very good in-game coach, in my opinion, never has been, and he's certainly not compared to Nick Saban. So I'm looking at the over, and this is not like a strong opinion, and I know Georgia's been a thunder under squad all year, but the over has cashed in 3 straight for Michigan. And you look back, their games with against anybody that had a pulse offensively have been their over games, and their under games have been against teams that have 0 pulse offensively. Washington, Rutgers, Northwestern. I mean, when they played Indiana November 6th, Indiana was on at least a 3rd-string quarterback, if not a 4th-string. And they've scored 59, 42, and 42 in their last 3 games. The Michigan State game had 70 combined points. The Nebraska game had 61 combined points. Even the Wisconsin game, and that was early in the year before Your boy Mertz quit throwing interceptions all the time. Even that one went over for 55 combined. The Ohio State 69 combined. The Maryland game 77 combined. I mean, this is a low total. And, I think Georgia's going to be able to generate some offense as well. And another reason why, and this doesn't really have any gambling merit, but I do think, and I know you pointed out those numbers, but those Michigan State defensive ends, they can get after you. And Daniels is not very elusive. Stetson Bennett, one thing I will give him credit for, he can extend plays. He's real elusive, and he can make plays with his legs, big plays, like 20, 30-yard gains. He's fast. He's got some wheels. And, well, I guess it does have some gambling relevance in that I do like the over, and I do think Georgia is going to be able to score as well. So I don't love the over. I'm not implying it's a big play. I think for the side, I'm just going to kind of evaluate the game as it goes on, and hope either team gets out to a 14-0 lead and get some value toward the original line by going the other way in game. If that's what I'm feeling at the moment, I'll probably have I already played the over just a little bit. Now if it's 45 is a key number on a total. If it's 45.5, I'd buy the half point to 45.
I really like your argument for the over. I didn't think of it even like that. I was kind of thinking, well, Georgia's D and Michigan's D is pretty good. And, I looked at some of the metrics and, just an EPA, Georgia #1 in everything on D.
I'm going to kill these blinds with all this sun coming in. Go ahead.
Go for it. And then you have Michigan. They ranked 25th in against the pass and 6th in EPA defense. So, it's like you don't think of the over when you look at some of this stuff, but then you look at the way these games play out. Yeah, it's going to be 3rd and 7, and then Michigan's going to go deep, and then Stetson Bennett's going to run for 10 yards. That's really what can happen, and that's how there could be scoring that happens in this game. I love the case you made for it. These teams are desperate. What's funny is that you look at some of those big playoff games of just the recent years with Bama and stuff. A lot of those games went over, especially Oklahoma. And they were pretty high as they were, but they went over just because there's just so much talent and speed on offense, and the quarterbacks were being very precise, and it's a good case. I really like your case on that. But I think I think the team that's ahead in the second half second quarter is probably going to keep pounding. So I do have a little bet on Michigan +8, Michigan +8. But I'll probably be an in-game wagerer throughout the thing. We can skip Rutgers, right, buddy? We don't need to talk about Rutgers, do we?
Sure. Get on Wake Forest -6 in the first quarter. They're going to go score like 3 touchdowns. Boom, boom, boom. And I bought the half point from 14.5 to 14 for a little bit. I just don't make big bets laying that much chalk, but I played Wake for a little bit. But we don't have to analyze it. I just say I get a little bit of Wake Forest -6 in the first quarter, and I got a little bit of Wake -14 behind the half point.
I say Wake Forest team total over.
They're going to score. Rutgers has no offense. They thought their season was over for at least 2 weeks, maybe. I think it's closer to 3 weeks. They thought their season was over. Kudos to them for jumping in. All for it, but they're going to get blasted.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking first half Wake Forest just because Rutgers won't be quite ready. They haven't been practicing like other teams, so that's a great point on the first quarter.
What is that first half number? Do you know? Is it like 10?
Let me pull it up here on the old DraftKings, and
here I can get it where I'm at right now.
7.5 Wake Forest on DraftKings -7.5 first quarter.
Yeah, I'm not against that either. Yeah.
Or sorry, that's first half. My bad. First quarter. Yeah, I don't see the first quarter. So you said 6 first quarter? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But I'm all for 7.5 as well. I wouldn't risk a ton, but a little bit, sure.
Yeah, Rutgers, they're toast. The reason that the full game has not been hit on the overs because they don't know if Rutgers is going to score. But that just tells you that the Wake Forest team total is the way to go too. So maybe we'll do both, buddy. Let's do both.
What's that team total? In the 40s?
It's usually not out till
Oh, not out yet. Gotcha.
Well, maybe it is. It's usually a day and a half to a day before, which we're close to. Oh, no, we're not there yet. No team totals yet on this one. Alternate total. No, I don't see anything.
No biggie. I was.
I mean, we can always guess since the total's what 60.
I would think their team total's got to be
40
minimum of 45, right? 40.
Yeah, in the low 40s, I would say. So I'd like it all the way up to 47, probably. I think they're just going to keep scoring like they do. And what's his face wants to make the pros, right?
Hartman, I think he's coming back.
Is he going to come back, Sam Hartman? Oh yeah, I guess he's a sophomore. Damn, he's been so good.
Well, he's a fourth-year sophomore. But he
but
can come back.
He's eligible for the draft too.
Oh yeah, no, he's eligible, but I'm pretty sure. I think he might have even announced he's coming back.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
All right, well, you look that up. Let's move on to the next one, and then we're gonna look at the Outback Bowl. Starting with the Outback Bowl, you have Arkansas versus Penn State. Penn State plus 1.5. Totals 48.5. This thing flipped a little bit. Penn State was favored. Motivation, both of them should be very motivated. I mean, Arkansas, they're going to want to beat a Big Ten team, and Penn State with Franklin, he does pretty much everything, every little weaselly thing he can to motivate them. Just all this crazy rumors about him leaving. Then he tells his team, "He never said that." You know how he is. Penn State has a lot of holdouts. Defensive coordinator, obviously Brent Pry, but they have two defensive coordinators there. Their two leading tacklers are gone. Linebackers Brandon Smith and Eli Brooks. Safety Jaquan Brisker is opted out. Jahan Dotson, right? That receiver. He's really good. Defensive end Arnold Ibikiti. Lots of guys. But you know what worried me on Arkansas side is if you look at what their receivers have done, Traylon Burks is like 2 or 3 receivers to them, man. And he's opted out. He declared for the draft. So I'm looking at like the next guy down. It's way lower on Arkansas side. Strength of schedule is pretty close with these teams. James Franklin 6-3 in bowl games. So big props to Franklin. Obviously nothing on the Arkansas side here for bowl ATS yet. Arkansas's got a 0.35 net yards per play. Arkansas 25th in EPA margin. Penn State is 60th. So, Arkansas statistically is a little better, but Clifford was injured and out some of those games. We went out the Iowa game, so you got to remember that. Both guys, with everybody opting out, I'm not in a rush to do anything here. But what I will say is, like I said before, I'm concerned for the SEC. And I know that Penn State's recruits have been pretty damn good, and so their backups are going to come in fired up. If this gets to a 3, I would take the dog on either side, but it looks like it's trending towards Penn State being that dog. What is your thoughts on this one?
So I like Arkansas a healthy amount here. I mean, Penn State's best players have opted out. Dotson is a huge loss. The defensive end, Ibikiti. Their two leading tacklers, Brandon Smith, Ellis Brooks, have opted out. Their starting safety, Jaquan Brisker, has opted out. Their DC is gone. Now Burks is out, and that is huge for Arkansas. And their defensive end, Trey Williams, is also out. But Arkansas is super motivated here with their bowl getting canceled last year. They haven't been to a bowl since one of my least favorite bowls of all time. I left my house to go to this little Christmas party some friends were having, and Arkansas was up 24-0. And I had them +7 and on the money line against Virginia Tech. And I get to the party, and they got music going. They don't even have the TV on, and I'm like, man, I'm up 31 at halftime. I mean, I started having fun, enjoying some cold Budweisers, and I didn't even check the score, not once. Didn't even look. Didn't ask them to put the TV on. Nothing. And I get to the bar, and it is 35-24 Vatech, and I almost had a flipping stroke. And and they have not been to a bowl game since then, nor should they have been invited. They should have been on 5-year bowl probation for that L. But they, the point being Arkansas is very motivated. I like Jefferson. Burks, his absence hurts. They are getting their wide receiver Tyson Morris back, who I'm not looking at his stats right now, but I think he's been out for a little while, or like since, I'm not positive, but he'd missed some games for sure. They do have him back, and you're right. I mean, everybody after Burks' production is not there, but they've got multiple running backs that can play. And Jefferson can make plays with his arms, or with his arm and his legs. And just Penn State's missing so much personnel. I think the play's Arkansas.
All right. Big shout out to Glenn.
What up, Glenn?
Watching this live. Glenn's a good fan, man. Great guy. And Glenn's always got some great questions. So we'll see if he pops one up here. Let's it's funny. I feel like this is turning into an SEC versus the Big Ten podcast here, Brian. I can't wait to get the Iowa-Kentucky game with you.
I'm on Kentucky, bro. I'm on Kentucky.
Oh my God. This is how it's gonna go, isn't it?
But hold on now. I had UCF. Well, don't tell nobody that. That's on the download. I had UCF.
How could you not when you have all that information on Florida? I was on UCF too. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, that was easy pickings. I've been fading the Gators since freaking mid-October, except for the Georgia game.
Since the came home.
But what was I gonna say? Oh, I thank God I didn't take Army. I was gonna take Army. Did not. I ended up not taking them. Thank goodness, because they didn't cover. And then now I did have just a little bit on Auburn. I just thought the home crowd, I knew they were missing a ton of personnel. But Houston had a couple guys out as well. And Holgo and he did make some incompetent decisions. I don't really like Holgo, but I lost that one. Now if there were a couple of plays that could have gone differently for Auburn, but anyhow, so I did lose that one. I did have a little bit of Mississippi State in the first half, so I'm 1-2 in SEC games.
But I
didn't have a big bet on any of those, and but I am on Vols, Kentucky.
You know what's funny? The next Big Ten versus SEC game is, I believe, this Penn State one. And even though Penn State's got some holdouts, it's going to tell you a little bit about what's going on, I think, And maybe it'll shape what you decide to do with the Iowa game and a couple of the other SEC games coming up here. So I find that kind of interesting. Obviously Michigan versus Georgia is the first one, but this national championship, I don't know. I'm going to look at Penn State, Arkansas, and see how tough Penn State plays them.
I do lean Michigan on the side, so I'm not all SEC. Slight, ever so slight. I probably won't put a penny on it.
We'll see how it goes then. All right. Well, let's move on to the next game. And that is the Fiesta Bowl, I believe. We got Notre Dame versus Oklahoma State, the Pokes. And they're +2-ish. Yeah, I think Notre Dame's still favored here. Total's low. It's at 45. I'll let you go first here.
Man, I hate how they bunch all these early New Year's Day games at the same time for no reason. I mean, why don't they just spread? Why does Arkansas kick? No, Arkansas can kick at noon Eastern. That's fine. But why do Oklahoma State, Notre Dame, and Kentucky, Iowa have to kick at 1? Why can't one of them be at like 1:45 and the other? I mean, the Sugar Bowl and Rose Bowl, are they that important and awesome that we can't have one game like roll into into the late first quarter before it ends?
Apparently not to Ohio State. It's not that important, but we'll get into that. But I do agree. There is a couple games that are overlapping a little too much, I think.
Yep. And the only reason I point that out is because I have a big bet on Kentucky, better than average bet on Arkansas, and they're both going at the same time. And I don't really have a good feel for Oklahoma State, Notre Dame. And so I've just already decided I'm not touching it, just because I don't want to. My eyes will be busy enough going back and having a Kentucky game and Arkansas simultaneously that I haven't even looked at this game. I mean, I know, obviously Notre Dame's missing the star safety and the Williams, the star running back. But I have no opinion, and I'm not playing it, and I'm not even gonna spend 2 seconds looking at it.
All right. Well, no, fair enough. And what I will say is, it's kind of funny. And Felica pointed this out last week when we recorded. It's weird that, you have two guys holding out from Notre Dame that wanted to coach Freeman, whatever, Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
They like lobbied for him to be the head coach. They make him head coach, and then these dipshits freaking opt out. It's like, what? It's like, if you're going to lobby, don't opt out, play the game,
Well, I think the safety Kyle Hamilton is, isn't he going to be like a top 5 pick?
Yeah. Is a safety ever a top 5 pick this lately? No, not really. But he'll probably be a first round pick, right? I mean, he's
definitely going to be a first rounder.
He's a top safety off the board, right? I would say maybe. Unless someone from Georgia or something.
I don't blame him for opting out, and I don't blame. They were hoping to get the play.
I don't blame him either, but they kind of waited till after the coach was announced. I don't know. I thought there was some weirdness to that, but at the same time, that's not a ton of people for Notre Dame. I think there's going to be more information coming out here. What's interesting to me is, Notre Dame's 41st best schedule. Oklahoma State is somehow 13th. I don't think the Big 12 is that good. Maybe, Baylor's pretty good. Oklahoma sure as hell wasn't. Oklahoma
Spencer
State.
Sanders is horrible.
He sucks in these big situations, man. And he's been like that for years now. And they got by their defense this year. And the only reason I'm not betting Notre Dame is because Oklahoma State's number 3 in sack rate, and Notre Dame's offensive line is 108th in sack rate. That's the only freaking reason I'm not betting Notre Dame right now. But I don't know. I'm probably gonna be like you and just kind of sit this game out and just watch it. I lean the Pokes a little bit, but how do you bet on Sanders after what you saw? Notre Dame's been pulling games out of their ass all year. Why would they stop now, right?
Yeah, they're not any good either.
Yeah, they're nothing special, and neither is Oklahoma State. But I what's funny, that these guys were the next ones in the playoffs, and I wanted this to happen. I wanted them to play each other. I'm like, I wish we could have the 5th game for the playoffs where, the two teams can play for the next spot. This was before the last week and before we got our 4 that were set, right? Like if we were expecting Alabama to lose to Georgia, kind of everyone was kind of expecting that a little bit, Georgia being a favorite. But so you're thinking Alabama drops. So are they going to let Notre Dame in, or are they going to let Oklahoma State in? We were thinking that. I'm like, well, they should just play each other for it. Now they're playing each other. We're not even that excited about it.
Right.
I mean, that's what's telling about this. It's like these two teams didn't deserve it anyway. The way Notre Dame played against a lot of teams and losing to Cincinnati the way they did, but we'll pass this one and move on to my super large bet on Iowa.
Are you serious?
No, I'm not. I'm kidding.
I was about to say, how can anybody back that offense? So bad.
You know what? I'm not saying that I won't bet them if this passes a 3, though. And I have some problems with Kentucky. I just kind of think that their record's a little bit misleading. Now, I know that out of the teams that got their butts beat by Georgia, they probably have the best argument here. But, I mean, you look at what they did against teams like Missouri early in the season. They barely win that game. South Carolina, terrible South Carolina team. They're winning by 6 points. Florida, when we thought Florida was good, we gave them props for that win. But Florida kind of ended up,
Florida dominated that game. We had 9 false starts, and they had a 90-yard field goal return.
Well, that's even worse for Kentucky.
No, I know. You're right. Absolutely. I'm agreeing with your thought process.
Vandy puts up 17 points against them. We don't have to look at New Mexico State, but I will give them credit. They blew Louisville's doors out, and Louisville's just a freaking such a weird team this year. Mississippi State, I don't know what to say about them, but they lost by double digits to Mississippi State. I'm concerned.
So did NC State. Mississippi State had a good year. They just were missing a lot of guys last
year. Yeah. I know. Well, they lost to Memphis, but we don't have to talk about that.
Oh, they got cheated at Memphis. Oh my God, there were 3 penalties on that play. They didn't call any of them. They had 2 like number 4s. Mississippi State had down the punt, and then everybody thought the play was dead. Memphis's guys were on the field, like walking on the field for the next play, and then Calvin Austin's going 95 yards, and the replay guy let that stand. I mean, it was 3 things they did that should have been called. It was crazy.
Hey, I know they got screwed, but they were at home and they shouldn't have been in that situation with freaking Memphis, man.
No, they were at Memphis. That was in the Liberty Bowl.
Whatever.
Right. No, you're right. Look, I'm not dying. I'm not dying on that hill for those cowbell sons of guns, you know.
Well, what I'm saying is I'm concerned. Here's what I'm concerned about. 2 things. That I think their schedule has been a little bit weird. I do like how they beat Louisville. I will give them props for that. But look at Kirk Ferentz. Man, his bowl freaking record is fantastic. 67%. He's like, and not counting 2001 and 2, I have the numbers at 10 and 5 ATS. This happens every freaking year with Iowa. Their offense sucks. Let's bet USC. What did they just do to USC? They blew the shit out of USC. If you remember that bowl, that was like a year or 2 ago. You know, and that's what Iowa does. It's just weird. So I'd be a little concerned for Kentucky side. I know you bet them and backed them. So what I wrote down is I might be betting Iowa, and I'm going to wait for a 3.5. But what is Kentucky now? Who's sitting out for Kentucky? That's another question.
Well, Josh Ali and Isaiah Epps got in a car wreck like I don't even think it quite was 2 weeks ago. Ali is their second best receiver. But I mean, I think that those 2 guys, and Epps is not, that doesn't really matter. I don't think they have any other guys opting out, to my knowledge. Now, Tyler Goodson's out for Iowa.
That was expected.
Right. Well, and one of their starting corners, Matt Hankins, is out. Again, it's just look. I bet it before Ali got in that car wreck. His absence is a pretty big deal. But Kentucky's got a good O-line, and they've got Chris Rodriguez and Cavossier Smoke and Wandale Robinson. And look, the quarterback's been up and down, but I mean, I like him for the most part. I know Iowa's got a really good secondary, and he has a tendency to make mistakes. But and Kentucky's won 3 bowl games in a row. Now they did not cover last year; they won by 2 as a 3-point favorite to NC State. But yeah, and I liked it a lot before the Ali news, but you know, and I think Kentucky was kind of a big winner like Ole Miss in the coaching carousel. There were definitely some jobs that, you know, some people thought Mark Stoops could be in play for. And, you know, he's done a great job there. And, I mean, I'm not saying he's looking to leave, but he's definitely done enough that if something came open that was nice, you know, I think they're kind of appreciative that he didn't get snagged by somebody, and
they should be. Yeah,
and I think I like Kentucky here.
All right, no, fair enough. We'll keep it at that. Maybe our bettors, you know, can make their own decision, but a lot of times when 2 people are kind of on the other sides, it's sometimes not the safest play. Let's move on to the Rose Bowl then, and Ohio State is facing Utah, and this spread's now down to 4. The total is 64. I mean, here's the thing: if I'm looking at motivation here, I just say medium for Ohio State. I think Ryan Day's going to get them fired up, but they're seeing their 2 best guys on receivers. I mean, it's bad enough for Alabama. Mechie's gone, but imagine if Jamison Williams and Mechie was gone. This is kind of like that situation for Ohio State with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson out there. And then their best freaking lineman, Haskell Garrett's out. Oh, man. I'm concerned for them. And I did take the 6. And right when that news came out, I missed the 6.5, 7. But I think people that got 7 are just bragging about it. They paid juice on that shit. But anyways, yeah. I just think there's more to come. I think there's more to come. And Ohio State, of course, has the big net yards per play, 1.1 over Utah. Ohio State's number 2 in EPA margin. Utah's number 7. Ohio's strength has been passing the ball at 9.8 yards per attempt. But without those two big guys coming in, they better be at practice every single day figuring this out with their next freshman coming in this game. Young kids. Utah is a little bit, I guess I would say, vulnerable against the pass and 64th in opponent EPA. Utah is number 1 in rush EPA, though. And Ohio State ranks 26 in opponent rush EPA when this field was a little bit wet against Michigan. Michigan ran all over them, just ran up their ass. So I'm concerned. I think Utah is kind of a bully. They sucked earlier in the season. I kind of looked at them, I'm like, how is this team losing to BYU? I watched that BYU-Utah game at night in my pool bar after a few too many. But either way, it was a great game to watch, and I was shocked. And Utah looked like they were the bigger, faster team that just lost to a BYU team that was just pulling stuff out of their ass completely, like, misdirection stuff, And I give BYU a ton of credit for what they did this year, but I just knew that Utah was better. And now Cameron Rising shows up. Just been fantastic. He also runs the ball very good. He knows when his 2 reads are screwed. He will take off, and he does a great job doing that. I think he's going to be doing a lot of that. And I think this total of 64 tells you that Utah is going to put up some points. I mean, I took the 6, and I feel pretty good about it. And I like the 6 all the way down to 3. I'm not sure how many more Ohio State people will be opting out. And it's really sad that the Rose Bowls come down to this, Brian. But I like Utah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I lean Utah, and I'll probably have a little bit on Utah. Yeah, I mean, these 4 guys are all, Garrett was first-team All-American from CBS Sports. He was first-team All-Big Ten. The O-lineman, I know I'm going to butcher the pronunciation with the hyphenated last name, Pettit Freer or whatever.
Yeah, I've never said his name, Nicholas Pettit Freyer. It's either Fryer or Freer. I've never really said his name before myself. Right?
He's the first team All-American. And then Olavi and Wilson are ranked the 3rd and 5th best receivers in the 2022 NFL draft by Kuiper in his positional rankings. I mean, these are debatably they're 4 best players on the whole team. And like you mentioned, I mean, maybe there'll be, I have no idea if there's going to be more opt-outs, but, Utah is on fire right now. Just I don't have an opinion on the total, but I will note that it is the highest total of the season for Utah, and the under has cashed in 3 straight for them. I lean Utah. I'll probably have a little bit on Utah. Not a strong play, though.
If Utah wins this, I almost look to the under. Kyle Whittingham is 9-5 in bowl games too. And one thing I will say is that, I mean, we're not supposed to go, Utah beat Oregon and Oregon beat Ohio State, but this is still a situation where Ohio State is once again vulnerable. They're vulnerable early in the season, like every team is, and they're vulnerable now without those guys. There could be some serious miscalculations by CJ Stroud, or just the receivers aren't where they're supposed to be. It's a lot different in the game than it is in practice. So I'm gonna stick with this one. This is gonna be a nice little Rose Bowl play for you guys. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it's not like it's a massive play of mine. I put 2 stars on it, so it's not like not that much in love with +4 now. But you probably can get some in game on that as well. Let's move on to the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. Baylor versus another SEC team, Ole Miss -1, total 55.5. Brian, how much you laying on Ole Miss?
Yeah, a good chunk, a good chunk. Kudos to Dave Aranda and Baylor for having a really, really good season, winning the Big 12. Ole Miss 7-4-1 against the spread. Their only losses at Auburn and at Bama. Matt Corral and Sam Williams are playing. This is only their second Sugar Bowl trip since Archie played in the 60s. The last time they just pounded Oklahoma State early and often. Motivation is not an issue. There'll be a huge Ole Miss contingent of fans in New Orleans. A lot of Ole Miss fans, live pretty close to New Orleans, and they've beaten bowl-bound teams by double digits like Ole Miss, A&M, Liberty. They also beat LSU by double digits, Louisville by double digits. So there's 5, bowl-bound teams that they beat by double digits. They beat Arkansas, albeit by 1, and Tennessee by 5 in Knoxville, though. Baylor had a hell of a year, but they're not on Ole Miss's level. Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss wins big.
All right, my man. I disagree with that one too. And I know I'm Mr. Fade today of the SEC, and maybe it's because
it's okay.
What's funny, Brian, is we're almost like in complete agreement on every other one, but this is fun. This is fun, and we all, we both have.
Hey, I am on K-State. If we get to that,
we will. And if you were
on K-State,
if you were on LSU, I was gonna really start getting worried about you.
No, hell no. LSU is trotting a JV team out there.
My God, I don't know why. We'll get into that one. Jerry Bohannon's going to play for Baylor. And, he's probably a little pissed that he missed the Big 12 championship game. And I think that's going to give him a little motivation here. The strength schedule is pretty close, 36th and 24th for Ole Miss. Ole Miss got a little harder schedule, obviously. I do like Ole Miss's wins against Arkansas and Texas A&M was a surprise one. And
I was on A&M that night a little too much, darn it. Although I also made an in-game bet that they rallied and got a touchdown. I had A&M like plus 15 in game.
Holy shit! Well, they got that garbage, but it blew my handicap on this game's the same as A&M, so it worries me a little bit. I mean, my power ratings have it close to pick 'em. Baylor -1, 1.25 actually, but Ole Miss is the fast-paced air raid, but they can run the ball very good, right? But their defense still only 104th in success rate in a total. I mean, they're in shootouts a lot. Ole Miss is good at running the ball. I like that. But the big issue is that Baylor and Bohannon being a running quarterback should be able to run all over these guys. And they still, their opponents are giving up a ton of rushing yards. I think it's one of the worst in college football. Let me look it up here per attempt. I think, it's the 5.05 yards per attempt, 224 rushing yards a game they're giving up. And so I'm worried that Baylor's just going to kind of control the clock and run the ball and keep the ball out of Matt Corral's hands, right? Now, here's the thing, Dave Aranda, I'm shocked that their offense is actually good this year. And I did cash over 5.5 on the very 6th game on Baylor this year. And so I nailed them, but I didn't think they were as good as this year. Baylor, Aranda's a defensive-oriented guy. I have to trust that he's going to figure this out. He was on LSU's championship game. He was the defensive coordinator for Wisconsin a couple of years with TJ Watt and a couple of the other big Wisconsin names. So I didn't make a play yet because right now I'm just waiting the day of, because why would you not? You get so much information late now. But I'm going to probably play Baylor. I'm probably going to play him at the +1. So a little disagreement again here. Let's move on to the Kansas State game, and you already showed your hand on Kansas State. And I'm going LSU. No, I'm not going LSU. No chance. I don't even know why they're showing up for this bowl game.
They're not going to show up for this game.
I don't think they will. This thing's going to cancel. They're going to say they have COVID even if they don't have it, man. This is ridiculous. I mean, everybody's sitting out. They have a completely new coaching staff. They don't have a quarterback. They're going to if this is played, they're going to give it to that freshman, and they're going to run the Wildcat. That's what I'm thinking. It's going to be one of those Wildcat games that that you're going to see. And
wait, are you talking about Nussmeier, the quarterback, or are you talking about a freshman running back in the Wildcat?
I don't think Nussmeier.
I don't think
they're not going to play him. He has his red shirt, right?
Right. Well, I don't know if there's been a ruling on it. They filed some sort of appeal to try to get him to play and not burn his red shirt, but I don't know how they can't have that granted. I mean, so they're probably going to play walk-on quarterbacks. They have they've all their best players have opted out.
I read converted wide receivers what they might play, which means which means, and I could be. I mean, this is speculation, Brian. I think I read that at the Action Network, but it's that would be a wildcat situation in most, and I'm sure they have a couple dunk plays. It wouldn't be much. This could get real ugly, and if you're Kleinman, you expect that. You say we're just bringing the house every freaking time, man to man, of course, a little bit, but Jesus, you're bringing the house, have one safety out there, and just plow through them. And so, I mean, this should be a 10-point spread. I don't know why the hell it's 3.5. Like giving you hope or something that LSU should be. I'm looking for an alternate line to bet Kansas State on, buddy. I mean, this should be. I doubt this is played, but anything to add?
I mean, I played K-State at 1.5.
I played them at like -2, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
No, I played them at 1. I played them at 1. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, LSU is not. Interim coach, all that, and Skylar Thompson, from what I've read, is on track to play. I think he's already back practicing. I mean, this game's not till January 4th, but I mean, LSU is they're playing walk-ons at QB. I mean, what else is there to say? And Clark, opted out. He was third in the nation, number 1 in the SEC in tackles, and they've had a bunch of other opt-outs, and I think they've had like 8 guys go in the portal, something like that. I don't know if maybe some of those, Florida had a couple guys in the portal that played before Bolton. So I don't know if LSU's got any guys like that. It doesn't matter. K-State's taking care of business in this one, I think. Their bowl with Arkansas got canceled last year. So, I'm sorry. Was it them that was going to play Arkansas? That's right.
It might have been. It sounds familiar. I
know they were under 500, but a lot of teams were under 500 going to bowl games last year. Let me see here. No, it was TCU and Arkansas. My apologies. Because Thompson got hurt like in week 3 last year, and they didn't make a bowl. But no, that gives them more motivation here. So I like K-State.
All right, K-State. Yeah, last year they didn't play a bowl game. They had 4 wins. And 6 losses. So, but that was Kleinman's first year, and I thought he did pretty good towards the end. But obviously, much better team. Skylar Thompson should be playing. Yeah, forget it. I'm looking for an alt line on Kansas State. I mean, I'm not going to get one until right before the game. But if the game happens, but by that time, the spread could be freaking 7. So, I mean, that's how much.
Speaking of alternate lines, Minnesota should have won that game by 100 last night.
Yeah, I had Minnesota, and it shouldn't have been that dang close. I started
not at all. I had to watch the whole damn game. Like I was like ready to go to sleep, and I'm like, "Well, you guys." I mean, God, they should have won that game by 50.
I purposely fell asleep because I was disgusted, and then my paranoia woke me up and checked. I was okay. I was like, Jesus Christ, like better win this freaking game, or else I'm gonna send some hate mail to Mr. Row the Boat, PJ Fleck.
The Gophers were very good to me this year. I had them a bunch, man. Now the one game they weren't good to me, I bet them at halftime when they were losing to Illinois, and it would have been a push. They missed a damn extra point when they scored a touchdown.
Bowling Green too. What the hell was that? And then they beat Wisconsin. I actually bet them against Wisconsin +7, so that lessened the blow for me.
I was all over them against Wisconsin. Yes.
Yeah. Well, hey man, we got in for about an hour. You have a little more time for NFL, or what you gotta do?
Yeah, I only like one game, but you know which one it is.
All right, we'll bring it out. Who do you like?
Oh, I like Detroit, and I just I think these NFL teams, do they test every day for COVID?
It's almost like they don't want their guys to play. I don't know, but it seems it feels like they're testing there. I mean, they're testing every day if they're already positive to try to get off now. But they changed the rules at least. What's funny, I was just talking to my buddy. Changing the rules made it even harder almost. Now it's like 5 days, at least for guys like Beasley. We know he's out. Now it's like, is Wentz gonna freaking play? I don't know. It's almost like I wish he was for sure out so we can get a fixed line on what's going on in a way. But I mean, it goes back to everything we said before. We don't need to pound that anymore.
Sure.
I like Detroit too. I bet Detroit +7.5. The thing about this, why the hell would Seattle want to win this game? You know, why they're completely out of the play. The way they lost last week, Russell Wilson's gone. They're training him. He's gone.
Oh, yeah.
And freaking their coach is gone.
Carroll's gone too.
Dude, he's gone. Everyone's gone. This team is embarrassing. This is, if it was the last game of the year, maybe I could see a little bit more of it. It's not even that. It's this game means not. The Bears have been out of it for a little while now, and they didn't really have any hopes. But the younger guys are in and they're playing a little bit. So that's why they won that game. And Detroit met with Dan Campbell, you know that the Lions are going to show up because they're playing for next year. So I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah, Dan Campbell is not much for a strategist, but you got to give him credit. He's had this team playing hard all year long. They're 6-1 against the spread in their last 7. Now, kind of tough travel spot. I mean, having gone to Atlanta last week and 2 weeks before that, they went to Denver, and now they got to go all the way out to Seattle. But they're going to come and play hard, and Goff is back. Easily could have won that game with the Falcons last week. Yeah, I like Detroit plus the 7. That's what I was going to say a minute ago. Just is like when I'm saying they test every day. Like I'm worried about COVID absences for like the rest of the games, but I bet Detroit. I don't know. I know Goff's not going to. I mean, he at least
have it twice. And I agree with that too. It's like when there's a dog and you're betting on a bad team anyway. If something happens, it can't get much worse. It's not like you're losing life. The only thing that can happen is upside, like Russell Wilson decides not to play, right? I mean, you're going to only get upside in those situations. So I like it. And that's why I only bet dogs this early. And for the most part, unless there's something that really sticks out, or unders, because if you like an under, it's usually not going to move towards the over if something happens. It's usually going to move towards the unless some serious defense happens. But if that's the case, the other side might not score anyway. No, I love it, man. So before you go, Brian, I have that one UFC question for you. It's the burning question that we all been asking ourselves for the last 6 months, probably even before.
I've got a UFC question for you too. I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead.
No. Okay, well, I'm excited to hear it. And but this is even before Volkanov and everything was Cyril Gane. I mean, he's fighting Ngannou now, and Francis is a freaking beast, and he's a scary man, strong, fast. But then Cyril Gane, I thought maybe he was overhyped for a while, but then he looks like freaking Vin Diesel on steroids. He's bigger dude. He's just he's French. He just knows the part. He's calculated. And he doesn't put his jaw out there. But the way he overpowered Lewis is really interesting to me. So I want to know who you got in this fight, gun to the head.
Oh man, it's so hard.
It's even at -110 right now at some of these.
I know. I like if the gun is to my head, I guess I got to go with Ngannou. But I think Ngannou now his cardio has improved so much. Like it used to be, he'd be gassing early second, but I mean, he didn't even feel like he was breaking a sweat against Stipe. And I thought Stipe fought pretty well that fight. I guess I'll go Ngannou, but I mean, I reserve the right to change my mind that week. I think it'll be a lot of just like what kind of body language I'm detecting on their stare downs and all that. Yeah. So right now I would say a very non-confident Ngannou because Gane has looked just fantastic. My question for you, and there's no odds out, at least not to my knowledge, is the fight that I'm so fired up for is my man Bryce Mitchell, the pride of Arkansas, coming back. You know who he's fighting?
No.
He's fighting Barbosa, Edson
Barbosa? Oh, shit.
And Bryce Mitchell, man. Now, have you watched a lot of Mitchell? Are you that familiar with him?
Yeah. It's been a while.
Well, he's been out or like a year. He broke his hand.
Thug Nasty?
Yeah, Thug Nasty, man. Oh, by the way, he's got a rap tape out.
Well, that makes me want to fade now. The freaking white rapper Slim Shady going on over here.
Man, dude, Bryce Mitchell is a character. I love the guy, but I love Barbosa in general. I don't know who's going to be favored. I kind of think Bryce is going to be favored a little bit, not a lot. So no opinion on that one. Yeah, I'm on the radio in Little Rock, and these guys, they're not that big into UFC, but they love Bryce. He's like come in the studio with them a time or two, and so they're always asking. And when this fight got booked, they were just grilling me about Barbosa and whatnot. And I was like, Barbosa has got a huge advantage in the stand up, but we know Bryce is just going to walk forward and get to the grappling ground game. And Barbosa is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, if I'm not mistaken, but
he hasn't been submitted in freaking years, man. I'm even trying to find when Barbosa's last time he was submitted. 2009.
Wow. Who submitted him?
Oh God, Lee King back in 2009. Oh, no, yes, is that it? Yeah, that's all I'm seeing.
No. Ferguson submitted him in that bloodbath war with his Darce choke. Ferguson submitted Barbosa. That was a bloodbath.
Wait, when was that one? Tony
probably like 5 years ago.
Oh yeah. That was 6 years ago. Okay, yeah. Well, I'll give him that. But I mean, he's fighting off a lot of submissions. Hell, he went to the freaking with Khabib, and with Khabib, he went to the freaking decision. He didn't get submitted by Khabib. I mean, it tells you something right there. I don't know how the hell he lost to Dan Ige. The split decision.
Oh, he got absolutely robbed. I lost a lot of money on that. That was during the pandemic when there was nothing to bet on.
Yes. Now I remember watching the fight. Okay, I understand the Giga loss here, because I'm high on him.
Yeah, that guy's good.
But
he's got a fight coming up. He's got a main event coming up. He's against Cater.
Okay, I'm on Barbosa here. All right. I don't like the people that Mitchell's beaten. Really, not really.
Yeah, no. This is the first ranked guy, and I mean, this is by far his most established opponent.
Yeah, I'm on Barbosa, but I will tell you that I'm still saying the same thing that you are, gun to the head, but I'll go the other. I'll go with Gane. And the only reason I go with Gane is because when there's only one other time that I saw Ngannou intimidated, and that was against Lewis. It was weird. The fight was weird. And he didn't look himself. And, he lost.
Lewis?
Ngannou. He lost to Lewis on a decision.
Oh God! Well, yeah, he was coming off that
Stipe loss.
Yeah. Oh, he was all in his feelings and mental in that fight, and Lewis's back was all mad. That was the worst fight I've ever watched.
It was awful. But I'll tell you this: that gives me the lean, and I'm not saying a lean to Gane right now. I'm going to rewatch. I've watched every.
Don't watch Lewis and Ngannou again.
I won't watch that. I don't. I might have to watch that, Brian. Actually, I'm sorry.
Lewis and Ngannou? No.
I might have to. I'm handicapping this fight, but I'll tell you this: I don't need to rewatch Gane because I've watched every one of Gane's fights since Bozer. So I've watched his last 5. So
did you have Black Beast last week or 2 weeks ago? Or
Black Beast? I didn't. I
what?
didn't. I was stupid, man. But that was my only loss. I swept the board. Besides that one, now I thought that I had the other guy by KO, but it wasn't a big bet. It was like I could see the Black Beast still winning this, but
I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
But the way I looked at it is that it's finally time for him to take a seat, and I was wrong. I mean, sorry. I like the Black Beast. I make a lot of money, and I made a lot of money from the Blades fight with his plus 400 by KO and all that. But I just thought that since what's his face's brother also is in the federation, I almost thought
Dalkus?
that Dalkus, his brother fights. I kind of thought, well, it's time for Big Brother to finally show something, and I just I kind of thought he was just a good technical fighter, but just not as good as Black Beast. Apparently I was wrong.
I mean, I bet Black Beast every fight, but he's always an underdog pretty much.
He sure is. But also about Lewis, he seems to step up against the big people, and then he shit the bed against other ones, in his past. Mark Hunt, Dos Santos wasn't no good in 2019.
I think Lewis's back was messed up there for a year or two. I think his back was messed up in that Hunt fight. But I mean, it's hard to take Hunt's punches.
Yeah, and if you go back to 15, you got some bad losses too, but that was a long time ago.
Oh, Mitrione knocked him out.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not looking at his resume.
Yes, Matt Mitrione and Sean Jordan. So, yeah, and that's kind of was the way I was looking at it. I was like, well, when he fights the guys that are, smaller named fighters, he's lazy. That's the way I look. That was my handicap. I was wrong. Shit, what can I say? Good stuff, Brian. Where could our video watchers and podcast listeners get your great information in place?
My Twitter is at Vegas B Edwards. Content majorwager.com, picks and content vegasinsider.com. Thanks for having me, Kiev. Happy all that. Happy New Year, all that good stuff, my man.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it as always.
All right, buddy. I have enjoyed it all year as well. And a special thanks for you to coming on a late notice and all the help that you've given me and the odds breakers all year long. Actually, for the past 5 years. So, hey.
How bad did I get screwed on my Boston College season win total when Dracovic got hurt?
Dude, you and everybody else, right? That was the most popular season win total, but you had the best number. I remember you're the first person on my pod that had it like 6.5 or something. Then close at like 7.5 with the juice.
That's brutal.
Well, I'll tell you this: Viking sweaters is the other big one. They're sweating that one too. So the other biggest win total in the NFL now.
Oh man, the Vikings could easily have like 12 wins right now. I mean, they blew so many games just for them making up ways to lose.
Oh, they're making up ways. That's for sure, Brian. Thank you so much for coming on, my man. We'll be talking soon.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.